Good morning, Rose Red Homestead, and welcome to Micro Moment Monday, where today I hope we are going to solve a problem I'm having. You may be hearing sound in the background. I just took bread out of the oven and the oven is still cooling down. The fan is on, so I hope that doesn't interfere with our sound. So as many of you know, I am currently working on a book on bread, and it's about what we do in an emergency situation or a long-term grid down situation where we then are having to bake bread for our family because it's the only bread that we would have available. Some of us kind of went through that a little bit with the COVID year 2020. But I'm looking for recipes that are quite simple in process and turn out a really good solid loaf of bread or type of bread, whatever it is. I'm doing several types, and then can be used using our food storage ingredients and then cooking it off grid. So it's kind of unlike any book out there. And I have purchased a number of really wonderful bread baking textbooks, and I'm pouring through those, doing a whole lot of research on this. Well, something has just crashed in the way I've been doing bread. And I'm not sure what it is. I was getting a little bit nervous about it because every loaf of bread I was turning out, it wasn't my usual quality of bread. I said, have you ever experienced anything like that where you've done something and perfected it and think you've mastered it, and then all of a sudden things collapse in and you don't know what you're doing wrong? Well, that's kind of where I am on this. And last night was the last straw. I baked a couple of loaves of bread, taking my recipe, my tried and true recipe, but I expanded it proportionally, increasing the ingredients so that I could have a larger piece of dough that I was working with. Well, it was probably the worst batch of bread I have ever baked in my life. And when Jim was carrying the 2 loaves out to the garbage, he was afraid that one of them was going to hit his foot like a brick. They were terrible. And I said, all right, that's it. I have got to figure out what is the matter. Is it the yeast? Is it me? What in the heck is going on? And so I did some testing last night, and I want to share with you what I did. And then as a result of that, the other thing that I did, and we'll get right to it. So I have right here in front of us yeast this is the yeast that I use all the time in my baking. This is yeast that is 1 year old. This is yeast that is 2 years old. Now, I always keep my yeast in the freezer. And I've had, I think, only one time, Jim, where some went bad and we had to throw it out.
I think it was once, maybe twice, but I think it was once.
But over years and years of doing this, I can pretty much tell when yeast starts going bad. And I had just wondered if maybe that was it, because my loaves weren't rising the way they usually do. They were really dense. And I am incorporating a lot of different types of whole grains in the breads, so trying to make them more nutritious. So I've been messing with my recipes, and I know that's probably part of it. But I just decided to put everything I've been doing aside and test the yeast. And then I was going to use the yeast in a fresh, brand new recipe that I had never done before out of one of these books that I have been researching. So here is the yeast test. This is the yeast that is 2 years old. This is 1 year old yeast. I never wet my yeast before adding it to my bread because I use instant yeast. You can add it in with the dry ingredients. You don't ever have to dampen it ahead of time. But so I don't often use this kind of a test, but this is a sure test. So I have some room temperature water here, which is about 75 degrees, and I'm putting 1/4 of a cup in each one. So this is a fair test. The ingredients are the same. So I'm just going to stir this up a little bit. Make sure all the yeast is wet, rinsing the spoon, going into the other one, and stirring it up a little bit. And then we're going to wait for 10 minutes. So we will be back in 10 minutes. Hey Siri, set timer for 10 minutes.
10 minutes, starting now.
Yes, it's a male with a British accent for my Siri. So we'll come back in 10 minutes and show you the results of this test. All right, so the buzzer just went off, and take a look at what we have. 2 bowls of perfectly good yeast. This is the 1-year-old yeast. And this is the 2-year-old yeast. So, this is one piece of data. So it looks to me like the problem is with me and not with the yeast. So both of these are going back in the freezer. And the other thing that I wanted to do was the data, that's just fine that I've got data, but I want to really try it out to see if I start with a fresh recipe that I haven't messed with, and if I follow those directions and proportions exactly, what would I get? Well, let me show you what I got. Two beautiful loaves of sandwich bread. This is the 1-year-old yeast. This is the 2-year-old yeast. And so they're both just gorgeous. This one is a more perfect loaf. Look at that seam right there. It has not expanded upward at all. It's beautiful. This one may have overproofed just a little bit, but both of these are, it just restored my confidence in my ability to bake bread. So now what I have to do is I need to go back to basics. I need to remember the very basics. I perhaps have gotten careless. The word is perhaps.
Sound it out. Perhaps.
Oh, thank you so much. Perhaps I have gotten a little bit careless in how accurately I measure. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, is be exactly accurate. I'm not going to do stuff by the seat of my pants, and just because I have over 60 years of experience, that counts for a lot, but not when I'm stumbling and crashing and burning like this. But my confidence is back, and so that's the first thing that I'm going to try. And then I'm going to do a little bit more research. I'm working on formula breads, things that will have a formula that if I use the formula in several different settings, it will work really, really well. So that's what I am working on. So we were just about to close out the video, and then we thought, we need to open up this bread to see what the crumb is like. So I already had cut one. Now here's the other one. Beautiful crumb over there. It's very soft. So there we have it. This is the 1-year-old yeast and the 2-year-old yeast. Not too bad. And I love how there is just a golden rim around the entire piece. All right, so I know what I need to do. It's me and not the yeast, so I need to get on it. So thanks for being with us, and we'll see you at our next video.